Welcome to Poland Daily News. I'm Nicholas Richardson. Exhausted and weakened after 10 days of hunger strike, farmers from the Orca Union ended their sitting at the Polish Parliament. Several of them were taken to hospital, while others received medical assistance in an ambulance. Despite the long protest, their only demand, a meeting with Prime Minister Donald Tusk, was not met. The government also refused to schedule a meeting with all the agricultural organisations. Although the head of government avoided the farmers, President Andrzej Duda did find time for them. The same corridor was where the farmers' protests lasted for 13 days. It was started by 11 farmers from different voivodeships who did not belong to any particular political party. They wanted a brief meeting with Prime Minister Donald Tusk to discuss the problems facing Polish agriculture. When they were ignored, they went on hunger strike on the 12th of May. Why did your political ally Donald Tusk fail to meet farmers? Mr. Donald Tusk spoke to farmers many times before. Previous meetings with the Prime Minister and members of the government had only been held with selected unions. The farmers wanted Donald Tusk to meet all organisations and talk to them about the impact of the European Union Green Deal and the uncontrolled flow of goods from Ukraine. You can't break a wall with your head. At least we won't be able to penetrate Mr. Tusk's wall. We know he won't meet us. He had a chance. There were 3 sessions of the same. Today is the 3rd one, and he left. President Andrzej Duda met farmers. The head of state managed to find a few minutes to talk to the protesters, but the Prime Minister did not. I believe that something will change politically. Thank you for agreeing to meet me. Prime Minister Donald Tusk regarded the farmers protesting in the Sejm as an unrepresentative group for talks on Polish agriculture. During the sessions, he avoided the corridors of the Sejm just to avoid meeting trade unions. He entered and left the Sejm through underground passages. Yesterday, when 2 starving people were taken to hospital and an ambulance was called for another, he dismissively wished them good health. I wish everyone good health. I do not believe it is worth risking your health for your own political demonstration. Donald Tusk has obligations regarding Brussels and Berlin. Therefore, what is he supposed to say to these people? To commit to anything, he needs Ursula von der Leyen's approval. Opposition MPs appealed to Prime Minister Donald Tusk to devote at least a dozen minutes to farmers. I am submitting a formal request for a 10-minute break so that the Prime Minister can find time to go to the farmers and talk, to end this shameful hunger strike. To put it bluntly, I am ashamed of Donald Tusk for not finding even 5 minutes to meet farmers. This is against humanity, not only against the interests of farmers, but against humanity. The farmers dismissed the protest this afternoon after 13 days of sit-ins, 10 of which were hunger strikes. Waiting for them were several dozen people who had been protesting in solidarity outside the Parliament building for the past few days. This shows how the dialogue between the government and the people looks. Farmers had a hunger strike in the Sejm, and on the floor below, a ruling coalition MP, Marcin Józefczuk, was having fun in a photo booth as part of the Museum Night events taking place across Poland. This is the Civic Coalition's empathy with the protesters. They show the contemptuous attitude of politicians of the ruling party towards the real problems of the Polish people. It's sad, but true. The weekly Gazeta Polska reports on the dismissal of General Jarosław Gromadzinski from the prestigious post of head of the Eurocorps. Military counterintelligence allegedly found evidence against the veteran Polish general, who had the highest security clearance in NATO, which led to the loss of his prestigious position and a scandal. The question is, was the accusation political? The deputy head of the military counterintelligence service is Colonel Krzysztof Dusza, one of the architects of the agreement between the Polish military counterintelligence service and the notorious Russian FSB, concluded during the first government of Donald Tusk. At the end of March, the media reported that the Polish Ministry of Defence had dismissed General Jarosław Gromadzinski from his post as head of the Eurocorps, a multinational rapid reaction force operating under the auspices of the European Union and NATO. In the atmosphere of the espionage scandal, the media wrote about the investigation launched against the general by the military counterintelligence service and the suspension of his access to classified information. Gazeta Polska found out that the reason, at least formally, was completely different because the decision to dismiss him and the personal order of the head of the Ministry of National Defence do not refer to the investigation conducted by the military counterintelligence service against General Gromadzinski, but to the legitimate needs of the armed forces. General Gromadzinski, dismissed by the Ministry of National Defence, is a very experienced commander, a veteran of Polish military missions in Iraq, Syria and Afghanistan, the first commander of the 18th Mechanized Division formed in Siedlce. In June 2023, he took over the command of the Eurocorps, before being vetted by the services, both Polish and Allied. He had the highest access to classified NATO information. Such proceedings are initiated, and the very initiation of proceedings means de facto suspension of access to such classified information. Such cases go on for years, and in the end it turns out that there was no reason to revoke the security clearance. We recently asked the head of the Ministry of National Defence, Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz, of the PSL about the case of General Gromadzynski.
To jest zadanie dla SKW, tu nikt nie rozstrzyga, ale podjęto wszystkie należne w przepisach prawa działania związane z wyjaśnieniem sprawy i będę oczekiwał efektów tego działania.
The current head of the military counterintelligence service is General Jarosław Struzik, until recently the vice president of the Stratspoint Foundation, founded in 1927 by General of the Reserve Military Mirosław Różański. For years, a conflict between Różański, a former member of the Polish Communist Party, a retired military man and now a senator in Szymon-Hołownia's Poland 2050, and General Gromadzynski has been an open secret. Różański came to the school in the darkest night of martial law in 1982, and Gromadzynski came to this school only after the fall of communism in 1990. I think this is one of the things that could explain the tensions between the generals. Moreover, the deputy head of military counterintelligence who controls General Gromadzynski is Colonel Krzysztof Dusza, one of the architects of the agreement between the Polish and Russian secret services during the previous government of Donald Tusk. Anyone who lowers the credibility of the Polish state abroad is acting to the detriment of Poland and therefore in the interests of Russia. To announce such a decision with such a justification is simply outrageous. In a normal country, such matters are dealt with quietly. The case of General Jarosław Gromadzynski is still unresolved, and since the end of March he himself has been at the disposal of the head of the Ministry of National Defence, who apparently has more important duties today.
Not so long ago, Thomas Lis was one of Poland's leading journalists. Then he allegedly violated the physical and sexual integrity of his female colleagues. The women reported the crime, but the prosecution dropped the case because the statute of limitations had passed. Investigators, however, described examples of scandalous behaviour by the former editor-in-chief of Newsweek. Are wealthy celebrities really above justice? Edyta Hołdyńska explains.
More allegations have surfaced against former Newsweek editor-in-chief Thomas Lis. A celebrity journalist is alleged to have harassed and made sexual comments to his subordinates and female employees. Did this happen, and how is it possible for such situations to occur in an environment that so loudly claims to be fighting for women's rights? I'm checking this today. You're a kind of journalistic aristocracy. Thomas Lis, a leading representative of the liberal left salons, is accused of violating the physical and sexual integrity of his employees. These are the findings of the public prosecutor's office. The former Newsweek boss is said to have touched one woman's hair. Another says he put his fingers through the holes in her trousers at thigh level. Thomas Lis has also allegedly followed one woman at a faster pace, grabbed her face, pushed her against the wall and kissed her as she tried to get away. Lis also tried to kiss another woman, who managed to get out of the way. The third person complained about where Thomas Lis wanted his makeup done. In his bedroom. What these women say, they experience panic attacks and a sexist atmosphere at work. It's just an abstraction. The investigation was closed, in the part concerning the violation of physical integrity, due to the statute of limitations of the Act. Thomas Lis claims that this means that he has been exonerated. Internet users have already corrected the record. No triumphalism or satisfaction, more like a relief. The decision to drop my case is a moment of joy for my loved ones after 2 years of hell, and now it is clear that I was telling the truth all along. They are the ones who deserve an apology, and I am sorry for their suffering. And I want to thank you for the outpouring of support from so many ordinary people during this time. No, Thomas Lis was not acquitted of any charges. The statute of limitations has run out, and the victims, because they were many women who filed reports and testimonies there, have been harmed. Unfortunately, they will have to live with this for the rest of their lives. Prosecutor Edyta Dudzińska signed the waiver. The prosecutor's decision is outrageous for the overwhelming majority of internet users commenting on the case, including left-wing politicians and other journalists. The prosecutor's office, knowing that the limitation period is so short for this act and having reliable evidentiary information, prolonged its actions. This is not the first example of the judiciary's strange behaviour towards public figures who, in a strange way, fit the trend of the former opposition, now the ruling camp, which avoided responsibility for their actions due to their celebrity status. Thomas Lis ceased to be editor-in-chief of Newsweek 2 years ago on the 24th of May 2022. He was fired after the case came to light.
Rafał Trzaskowski did not expect such an international career. His fight against the cross in public spaces was noticed overseas, and not by just anyone. Elon Musk himself, a billionaire and entrepreneur, noticed that the decision made by the Warsaw City Hall are more and more embarrassing. However, it is unlikely that the City Hall will withdraw its plans to remove Christian symbols from city offices.
Three Crosses Square, the Church of the Holy Cross, Ulica Świętokrzyska, or Holy Cross Street, or the monument to Sigismund III Vasa, embracing the cross on the Castle Square. Anyone familiar with the topography of the capital knows that the cross is part of Warsaw's identity, but not for everyone. The capital's authorities have taken steps that could be interpreted as the beginning of a battle against Christian symbols in public spaces. The first step could be to remove the cross from government offices, as the city's mayor, Rafał Trzaskowski, announced a few days ago. Clear guidelines saying that in places where people from Warsaw are served, these places should remain neutral. Tobias Bocienski, Rafał Trzaskowski's former rival in the local elections, disagrees. The removal of crosses is unconstitutional because it violates the freedom of religion of Poles, but it is also an act hostile to the Polish tradition and history, because the cross symbolizes a certain identity and is inextricably linked to Polish patriotism. We have rulings from European courts, including the Strasbourg court in 2011, which say that crosses can be hung in public offices because the mere hanging of such a religious element does not indoctrinate anyone. It is no secret that Rafał Trzaskowski pursues a progressive agenda that contradicts Christian values. 4 years ago, he attended a meeting of the Bilderberg Group, a secretive association of globalists where the world's major political and economic challenges are discussed behind closed doors. Shortly before announcing the decision to remove the crosses from the offices, the president met Alex Soros, the son and heir apparent of billionaire George Soros. Soros co-funds left liberal parties in Central Europe. It is great to be welcomed back to Warsaw by one of the most dynamic presidents in the world, Rafał Trzaskowski. You were the nation's peacock and parrot, now you are a handmaid of other people. A famous Polish poet, Juliusz Słowacki, wrote about Poland. You could say that a free paraphrase of these words was made by one of the most influential people in the world. Elon Musk does not hide his embarrassment at the politics of Rafał Trzaskowski. They are shamelessly copying stupid things from America. How embarrassing. President Trzaskowski loves to imitate others in order to be fashionable, and Elon Musk has ploughed Mr. Trzaskowski on this point, and it is a cause for shame. President Trzaskowski should somehow withdraw. Wishful thinking. Rafał Trzaskowski enjoys broad support in Warsaw, and it is difficult to expect a sudden change in his current policies. It is worth remembering, however, that after a possible move from City Hall to the presidential palace, the agenda that Trzaskowski implements would apply to all Poles, and the current mayor of Warsaw is considered the most likely civic platform candidate in next year's presidential elections.
That's the news. Thank you for watching, and from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.